Greetings, everyone.
Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
It's Jake Ciely.
Opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
Who is that guy?
Your mama.
You just made the list!
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in fantasy. Days of the range.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No. Burn.
Game on, you ducks. It is All In Fantasy, Tales of the Ranks, Week 6 waiver wire discussion. Yes, Week 6 of the season is already here, Chris Meaney. We're past the third waypoint-ish, kind of. Now we're here. 6 times 3, 18. The season's over. There you go. But we only played the week 17. I know. What do you mean, jeez? Like,
it's flying by, though. Like, you kidding me? Like, week 6 already?
Yeah, before we even got here, though, you're like, man, I don't sleep. Because hockey's here for you. You should know that the season feels like this if hockey's here.
Yeah, it's true. It's been a crazy couple days. Just, hockey is here. You know, your Mets, baseball playoffs, week 6. I don't know. It just feels like we've been doing this a long time, but it just feels like, I don't know, the older we get, how quickly time just flies by. I'm sure everybody, listening, watching can relate as well. Like, time just flies by.
I don't know what you're talking about being older. I've been 36 for the last 5 years, so...
I just graduated from high school last year, so yeah.
Yeah, I turned 36, and then I just kept turning 36 and 36, and then going to be 36 again.
Like
every
Joey.
single time. Yeah,
got a
just
deal.
stuck in it. Yeah, we had a deal, God. Good reference there. Yes, if you're not paying attention to hockey or if you're just not paying attention in general, which we assume you are at this point, over at FTN, at Chris Meaney, all the tools over there. Hockey's starting so you can get some money making some good bets. And if you're betting first touchdown, forget, Meaney knows this. We're actually tracking it now just because, so let me pull this back up. So the first touchdown bets have been making on SiriusXM. If you just made the first touchdown for the game bets, it's 5 and 7, which 5 out of 12 for first touchdown of the game is a pretty, I'd say, damn good mark. I mean, if you only bet the first touchdowns, you're sitting pretty. If you're doing first touchdown for not even any time, because first touchdown for the team is better than any time, as everybody should know. But if you're just doing the first touchdown for the team, it's 9 and 3. And the 3 misses, they didn't even score, at period. So the any time one wouldn't even made sense to do that. 9 and 3, man. You just told me
unreal.
you're I know. You told me you're putting the pressure on me. Again, it hit last night for the team, not for the game. It was Rashid Shaheed. But it worked out like I said. I told you they were going to start with the ball. And I was like, oh, my God, it's happening.
And they took a deep shot to Rashid Shaheed. They took one. And, I mean, you've been spot on. And I know I keep saying, here we go, automatic. But I'm just having some fun with it. And, as we said on the SiriusXM show, a little sprinkle on the first touchdown, first team touchdown. But, every time you mention first touchdown, dude scores. Whether it's in the second quarter, third quarter, or the fourth quarter. So it's been a heck of a start. Yeah, we're on there, you and I, on Mondays and Thursdays, and teeing up the island games. And you've been hot fire.
Not to be whatever, but to be fair, the 2 times, 2 out of 3 times, one time I completely obviously got it wrong. But the 2 times I also got it wrong, I was getting a little too cute, was the Zeke touchdown against the Giants.
Yeah.
Ended up being Dowdle. He didn't score at all, obviously. And then the one where I said no touchdown at all for the Dolphins. That almost happened.
Yeah, I believe we're into the third quarter and nobody had scored in that football game. Certainly
This is a lot of pressure this week, though, because Thursday Night Football is 49ers Seahawks. I have 8 people I can pick from.
There's just literally anywhere that you could go, and I think you should really test how hot fire you are, heat check time. Curry and Luka taking shots from their other half.
Those are
so Noah Fant, Charbonnet,
Purdy runs one in.
Purdy runs one in. Who I have noticed, by the way, has been running a little bit more. He can do that, right? We saw it a couple times in the playoffs. If he ran a little bit more, he would be. I'd feel a lot better. I mean, feel good about him, anyways.
So I was going to ask you a quarterback question, and we are talking waivers here, but this is interesting for everybody out there, I believe. Purdy versus Caleb Williams the rest of the season. Who would you take? Because we know, look, I mean, unless you're going to disagree with me, I think we agree, that the higher ceiling is with Caleb Williams, especially coming off that game. But that is just one really good game so far. The offensive line, looked a little bit better in that game. They do have Jacksonville this week. They have some nice matchups coming up. So if you had to say right now going forward, one quarterback league, Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy?
I'm going to say Brock Purdy. You know, I have a soft spot for him, and I agree with you on the ceiling with Caleb Williams. Really good game. The past couple of weeks have been really good games from him. You know, it's why we don't panic for rookies unless their name's Bryce Young. But you know, it was Carolina. I'll say that. Like, and you have to, right? Because it was nice. DJ Moore got right 2 touchdowns. Keenan's been quiet. Rome Odunze's been quiet. Swift's had a couple nice games, but it was Carolina, and we saw the Saints put up 47 points against them, and they've struggled over the past couple weeks to score some points. So I'll go with Brock Purdy. We've only seen one ceiling game from him, 25 points, 92 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But I guess the running is not 41-33. Again, from a betting perspective, usually like 7.5, 8.5 rushing yards. With all those weapons Ayuk got right, I'll lean Brock Purdy, but it's pretty close.
See, the appealing part of it, and the bye week's in week 7 next week, so they get Jacksonville and London, and Washington, Arizona, New England, Green Bay for the next 5 games. Like, that's
pretty solid.
New England, depending on how much he tries to pass versus run, there could be a little bit of a issue in there. But then after that, that's the other. So, like, that's a nice run, and it's going to have you sitting pretty. But then, Minnesota, Detroit, and by the way, let me put out the fact that it's Minnesota at Detroit, at San Francisco, at Minnesota, again Minnesota, Detroit at home. So we're back with Detroit. Cold weather, by the way. Fortunately for the playoff, the title, if you make it that far, bless you.
Excuse me.
Seattle Seahawks, who can't stop anybody on defense. That's really tasty. But I mean, that's a 6-game stretch where you're like, woo, or 5-game stretch where you're kind of like, yeah, that's going to be rough.
And it's going to be very telling for the Chicago Bears. I mean, that division, I'm pretty sure they all have winning records, right? I mean, the Bears have the longest home winning streak in the NFL dating back to last year. It's 8 in a row. But that stretch, I know, is really going to determine where they're at in the playoffs. We're going to see a lot about what Caleb Williams has to offer, even as a rookie. Like you mentioned the Pats, but like the Packers divisional game, and then those other like 3 divisional games in a row with the Niners, and then 2 more divisional games. So you got 6 divisional games over a 7-week span, 5 over a 6-week span with the Niners sprinkled in. That's pretty tough, a tough stretch. I actually don't mind quarterbacks against the Lions. And I know that, you know, they do have a nice front, and they can get after you, and they can stop the run. And I think that's part of why they give up so many passing yards, because teams are chucking on them. But it's still going to be a very tough 2 tough matchups for Caleb Williams and the Bears.
Yeah, that's more my concern. It's just that the pressure might get to him. So we'll stay with power-ups instead of going to worries first. We'll start positive this week because we are talking the Bears. So let's hey, real quick, actually, though, sidebar for everybody. Just as, like, and I would appreciate if, by the way, just because I noticed, so, like, you guys did an amazing job getting this podcast back on track. We are still only about halfway to what we used to be. Like, I've been watching the numbers. Yes, I get the peek behind the curtain. Yeah, I know. So, like, if you could remind your friends, like, I don't be like, oh, go tell your friends about this podcast. Like really, like, I for me, I'm like, man, this sucks. I lost like half my audience. Like, it just, you know, I want people to hear us. And I know you're like, hey, you know, I don't want my league mates to know, but I'd appreciate your non-league mates telling them. But just because we lost like half our audience in the transition, like, so you did a great job. Like, we have all our reviews. If you still haven't subscribed and rated, we'd still appreciate that. But more so, just get the word out more. A thank you from this Jake Ciely and the wife, Nicole. She'll even give you a thank you. And Chris Meaney. He gives thank yous anyway, though. You're from Canada, though. You give thank yous to everybody just for, like, passing on the street.
Yeah, obligated to toss out thank yous, even if you don't want to, but certainly want to in this situation. You know, our numbers are pretty good on YouTube. We're rising, but I think some people may have just been agitated with the previous, I don't know, just the way that the Apple was... Yeah. Just the way Apple was running things there, but we're on point now, and I feel like, we're on to something. So that would be awesome if you guys could rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend.
Yes, thank you. So, DeAndre Swift, let's talk Bears, and let's talk about the fact that I gave him. Well, actually, no. Let me rephrase. Let me see if you can guess. So my power up mushrooms, which are Mario related, everybody I had somebody try like messaging me. He was like, "Man, I appreciate the shrooms thing." And as soon as he said shroom instead of mushroom, I was like, "I don't think you understand where I was going with this. It's Mario, and not the other way." Which, but we're so all over the place right now. People are going to tune in and be like, "Could you just get to the This is why I don't tell people, because you don't get to the damn information now. I got an ad on Twitter. It was for a weed shroom drink. Like, it was get the buzz without the hangover. And I'm like, you are targeting the wrong audience. Like, I don't know what algorithm you got, but I don't even drink regularly. Like, who are you targeting here?
There must have been a little bit of just energy drink in there. They must have thought, like, hey, Ciely likes himself some energy
Maybe that's
drink.
what it is.
So maybe, yeah. I'm sure you know a couple people who would enjoy that drink, so that may be part of it as well.
Oh, yeah, and also a couple people who would love the weed shroom mixer that they have now. They know it's that thing. Anyway, DeAndre Swift that was the question. How many mushrooms do you think Mario power up mushrooms? That's where they came from. How many Mario power up mushrooms do you think I gave Swift?
I think I know I think you're sour on him, so I'd say you gave him. I want to say you gave him 3, but I'm going to say you gave him 2.
Oh, and I love that you called it out that way, too. I did give him 2. So Here's my explanation. The schedule we just brought up, you can say it deserves more just on the schedule alone. And sure, but here's what I said to Meaney on SiriusXM. I'm kind of going to double down on this if you didn't read the article. But I'd sell high if you can. And now, again, sell high relative to mid RB2 value. If you can get that, get away. So as you can see, still kind of in on Swift. I don't think you have to go as low end RB2, but that's actually where I would place him rest of the season with everybody healthy, no buys. I'd still put him in the high mid 20s of running back because Roschon Johnson, still third down issue. Roschon Johnson as a third down running back, still getting some touches at the goal line. And then, the schedule is nice now, but my biggest concern is because we've seen this from the offensive line being part of the problem. Like, Swift is getting hit a lot before he can even get going. I mean, we saw that one play where he lost 11 yards, and there's a lot of other plays where he's getting hit before he gets to the line of scrimmage. So I'm saying all to say, the Commanders on paper, people are going to see the Commanders and be like, ooh, he gets the Commanders. We brought up the schedule. The Commanders are doing better this year overall, including the one thing where they were okay. You know this. I said it in preseason. Commanders defense actually was my quote, was they stink, except for they do have a decent defensive line, similar to Giants. The Giants stink. Actually, they have a really good defensive line. The difference there. So if he goes well against the Jaguars, cool. You could probably even get more. But Meaney, if he face plants against the Commanders, it's going to be immediately back to, can I even start him next week, even in a good matchup? Nobody wants to trade for him, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I say 2. Like, yes, we feel better, but I'm still really hesitant on Swift for the long term.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because I don't think we really believe – I don't want to speak for you, but I don't want to be too hard on Swift. I mean, I joined Mayo, and he's like, hey, is there a guy in the NFL that goes down easier than Swift? And I thought, he
said the same thing to me. He said, he just gets arm tackled all the time, which is not wrong. You slap him in the shin, and he falls over.
Right. He's not wrong. He's not I don't feel like he's a fantastic kind of between the tackle type of runner. We've heard this from a couple different coaches. He lost the job to Jamal Williams, the goal line role in Philadelphia people were saying was just the brotherly shove, but I think they were just, why are we going to, they're not doing it as much in Philly. Like, they're handing it off to Saquon at the 5 or the 3, and they didn't do that last year with Swift. I think like the biggest appeal with Swift is his pass catching ability, and he is shifty that way. Sometimes I'd like to see him run more downhill than, jukes and back to the left and back to the right, which part of that is because of the offensive line. But one thing I'll say is that I feel like Chicago really wants him to be the guy because they paid him to be the guy. And they really went back to him over the past couple weeks, 16 and 21 carries, and then the 9 catches. So I think that even if he struggles again, they'll really stick with him, despite some beat reporters in Chicago saying Herbert and Roschon. But those matchups moving forward are pretty tough. You get another good week in Jacksonville. You mentioned out of the bye, Washington, Arizona's a good spot, but it does get difficult moving forward. I mean, those games against Detroit in particular, We've seen what the Vikings are doing defensively,
runs
leading
on
the
Detroit.
NFL in sacks and picks. So it is really tough. And I get it. Like maybe you were off to a really slow start and Swift's rolling for you and you're starting to pile up some wins. You can ride this thing out. And then maybe you can flip after a couple more games. I'm trying to think of some running backs that I would try to acquire for him. Like it may be him and your fourth best wide receiver for Breece Hall. Him
How about straight up, would
Joe
you
Mixon.
Because of the concussion on a bye, we don't know what's going to come out of the bye. Would you send him straight up for Etienne?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
I would immediately do that.
I'm still thinking in my head the reasons why I didn't love Etienne. So like Mostert is back. I know Tua is probably going to come back week 9 and the offense will be better.
The first 2 weeks
There's a
with
lot
them,
going on.
Yeah, I'm still
may see a little bit more right. May see a little bit more Mostert. May just turn into a mess in Miami.
I think it's more the fact that you and I were both on. We don't want Etienne inside the top 10, but we agreed that RB 13, 14, 15 where he ended. Yeah, where we had him. I would take Etienne straight up. So, all right.
Would you take Kareem Hunt straight up for Swift?
Probably, but I'm still. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in the waivers. He's been in there for the past 2 weeks. He's further down the list because only now that he's back from his PTSD issue is he the lead? Is he even a chance to be the lead? Because he has been in the past and they've used him before. A lot of that was timeshare with McKinnon, but Kareem Hunt's looked good in 2 games. I know he's on the Chiefs, and let's be honest, he's on the Chiefs. It's going to help. But last year, as bad as the Browns are this year, let's not forget that the Browns were run happiest team in the league and actually were good at running the ball. Like this is, Deshaun Watson's ruining this, but this is also wasn't Deshaun Watson for the entire season. To go back to that point is Kareem Hunt did not look good last year. So I'm not saying it's not going to last, but that's why I hesitated. If you told me Kareem Hunt doesn't lose the job, then I would say definitively Kareem Hunt, not even a question over DeAndre Swift. Like if I had Kareem Hunt and you came with me with Swift, I'd be like, you need to give me Swift and to get Hunt. But it's the concern of Edwards-Helaire. He fumbles, has a bad game, whatever starts to decline a little bit over 2 games and they make a switch or timeshare. That's a one where that's a one that I could see a whole timeshare starting to develop. There wasn't a lot of steal and P. Ryan in the game last night, but I could see more if they're down passing more. Anyway, so Garrett Wilson, how many mushrooms do you think I gave him?
I'd say you gave him just 1. I mean, he's 2. Yeah, 2.
2.
Okay.
Also 2. You know the numbers.
Had a good day.
Yeah, I tweeted this out. So I went to True Media. So they go back as far as 2000. So pretty cool number because it's just the 2000s. I don't have to worry about the 19 or whatever. Since 2000, there's been 35 wide receivers that have had 20-plus targets. Do you know how many receivers had fewer receiving yards on 20-plus targets than Garrett Wilson? If we were making a list, it'd be really quick, Meaney, because it's only one who happened to have Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, by the way. Devontae Adams had 79 yards, 10 receptions on over 20 targets. Garrett Wilson is the second fewest. To give you an idea what the normal wide receiver on 20-plus targets averages, 13.3 receptions, 162.4 yards, 0.9 touchdowns, and 28.3 fantasy points. That's what they average. And Garrett Wilson barely cracked 100. That's why I'm only giving him 2. I do think they finally have a rapport and they're finally on the same page. And he's not even getting the death stares from Aaron Rodgers as, they don't connect. And Rodgers just blames Wilson every damn time. At the same time, Rodgers should be getting death stares at him because he's playing like garbage. Honestly, I saw something. It's funny. It's for the Athletic, so don't athletic people come for me. But I thought it was funny. So Chase Daniels podcast that he does, he was like, it might be crazy to say that the best quarterback in New York is Daniel Jones, and then it says not named Josh Allen. I'm like, that's such a cop out way to say it. Really. You're just saying Daniel Jones is better than Aaron Rodgers. You set that up for such a anyway. Coming from my cohort over here, not really, but he's kind of a teammate, I guess. But he's better than that's how bad Aaron Rodgers has been this year. So are you saying you would only give him 1? You didn't even do fewer than I did?
No, I would give him just like one. Yeah, I could see two. It's funny because the only quarterback really in New York is Josh Allen, and I think his game last week was historically bad in terms of like a completion percentage, at least in the first half or something. I saw
That was
something
the
like that,
worst since his first 2 years in the school in the league.
It kind of reminded me of Allen, yeah, his rookie season when he wasn't throwing. Who was he throwing the football to in his rookie season, right? Then they got Beasley, and then they got Diggs and guys who can separate. But the one thing with Garrett Wilson, the volume, right? You mentioned the volume, and obviously the 22 targets in that game. I don't even know if I want to say like I guess they are still building a rapport. These guys have only played 5 games together, but he's still certainly looking at his old buddy Alan Lazard. I think the biggest problem with the Jets is they cannot get a run game going right now, and Rodgers doesn't look accurate. He doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. I don't think he does. To me, I see a quarterback who is unwilling to take a hit. He doesn't want to take a hit. I know a lot of quarterbacks don't want to take a hit, but he's older. He's coming off the Achilles. He's missing guys. He's overthrowing guys. He's underthrowing guys. So this isn't all on Wilson. But the next couple of weeks, there's some tough corners he's going to have to play. He's going to have to deal with Buffalo and Pittsburgh and New England. There's some tough corners there for him. I still think that there's a buying opportunity just given the whole Devontae Adams situation, but know that it could blow up in your face.
Big time.
If you acquire him. Ratcliffe, I heard Ratcliffe at FTN Fantasy said, it would be a good thing for Garrett Wilson if Devontae Adams went there. And I think real life, it would be a good thing, but he wouldn't put up wide receiver 1 numbers. Like I would not be ranking him ahead of Devontae Adams if Adams is on the squad. So I don't think ultimately it would be a good thing for fantasy. It would just mean you'd have to readjust. This guy would be a low end wide receiver 2. There would be some very quiet weeks, but the Jets offense is very, very concerning for me.
I would definitely agree. And for the one other power up player in the article, only one. That's the one that only got one mushroom is Michael Pittman. We've talked about this one a lot. You can go read over there, but Josh Downs, I believe, is the better fit. And we've seen how bad Pittman's been with Anthony Richardson, and they are going to turn back to him. So on the worry side of the thing, there's 3 players: Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, George Pickens are the big 3. Those are the panics that people have right now. Like, oh my God, what's happening? I want to talk to 2 running backs real quick. George Pickens, he got 3. And I think it's more for the fact of like George Pickens is a wide receiver 3 when we were hoping he could be a 2, similar to like the Terry McLaurin. He's going to get all the volume, even in a lesser offense, would still get him to the 2 range. The biggest thing about McLaurin in the past years is we couldn't get him inside the top 15, top 20, even with all that volume. But that's what we were kind of expecting with Pickens. That's not even there. Actually, 27.9% team target share and still just barely checking in as a 3. I mean, he's back end 3 right now. So all that being said, Bijan got 3. Etienne only got 2. Here's why. Bijan is 3 if you're drafting him as a top 3 running back. Most everybody was. I think I had him at 4. I mean, I had him top 5, no question about it. I think the top 5 is gone. Like, we talked to Josh Kendall of The Athletic on Sirius XM, and he said they want to use Tyler Algier. It's basically like having a weapon that you just leave on the shelf. They don't want to do that. So he's too good not to use. And he said, this doesn't mean Bijan's not the lead. This doesn't mean Bijan's not going to be RB1. But the issue is now he's more of a back end because especially the past 2 weeks, he's dropping down. Actually, the last 3 weeks. So week 1, his running back touch percentage was almost 89%, that being Bijan Robinson. The last 3 weeks, it's actually 4 games, sorry. It's hovered from 52.4 to 72% being the high one. And that 72% was the only other one that was even over 67%. So he's getting time shared here. Travis Etienne, only 2 because Doug Peterson said this yesterday. It was after we did the Sirius XM show, but he came out and said when they actually had the reports that he got knocked in the shoulder was the term. And so he got hit in that same shoulder that he's been dealing with. That's why I say 2. But I say 2 because it's not a non-factor, meaning because Bigsby's too good right now. He's been performing too well for me to say he's not going to be an issue in a potential hot hand situation. I still think Etienne's the lead. But I think where it's funny, like I have 3 for Bijan because he's not top 5. I have 2 for Etienne because I don't think he's losing the job. But I think he's losing a bigger share than Bijan is. Does that make sense? Does that all you're able to work through that?
No, Yeah, absolutely. And if, like you said, I'll just reference the series show. If you listened, that was something that we heard with Algier, and it kind of took us back a little bit. We did hear from beat reporters, and that it would be like 16 carries Bijan, 14 carries Algier. It's not like that. And Kirk Cousins looks healthy, and he's throwing the football a little bit more. But Algier is definitely involved, and hearing that took me back a little bit. And then watching that game that night, you could really see it. Especially what was very surprising to me was when they were down the second time, they came back. And there was a final drive. They came back. I think the second drive, right when Bucky turned the ball over, he fumbled the ball. Late in the game, they actually had Algier on the field. And that was, to me, I thought a 2-minute drill. And I was surprised because I thought Bijan would be there because he's been catching some passes. There was a 3rd and long that Tyler Algier was on the field, and I was like, wow, that's 3 straight snaps where Algier was on the field, and it was definitely a passing down situation in all of them. So on the other side, I did see the quote from Peterson. He got popped and pretty good. So you and I were talking yesterday about how maybe he was just riding a hot hand, and maybe he would have rode the hot hand anyways. Because Tank did look good in that game. He's at 8+. He's got a ridiculous, unsustainable 8 yards per carry, but he's had a couple really big runs. He's got a 65-yard run. He's got a 58-yard run in the past couple of games. So he's not involved at all through the air. He did catch one pass for 28 yards, but Peterson does need some wins. He is really feeling the pressure here. He needs some W's, so he may say, hey, listen, I know what I have in Etienne, but Bigsby's running the ball pretty well, and I'm gonna start giving him some touches where maybe it's 8 to 10 touches. But I'm with you. This doesn't feel like a Tampa situation with Bucky and Rachaad White.
Which is why I would
buy
at the
low
same
time, Etienne is.
Here you go.
I was gonna
Swift
say
for Etienne.
Yeah,
you would take Etienne.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I would. I think that there's more of a possibility of it being like a 70, 30, 60, 40 in Jacksonville, but I think the ceiling is higher with Etienne than Swift.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Roschon may just get 30% of the touches. The Tank could.
Well, I actually think both backfields could be 2/3 to 1/3. I think that's potentially what we're looking at going forward. I would say between the two, I'm actually more scared of Bigsby on a week-to-week basis because if Etienne starts off 5 for 9,
yes,
I could just see Peterson being like, well, doesn't have it today. The matchup's not there for Etienne or something. Let's see if Bigsby has it. That's why I go back to the hot hand. I don't think that's happening with the Bears. Swift starts 5 and 9. We've already seen it. I think Roschon's 33% is set. This is your 33. Of course, it's going to range a little bit. But I think on Etienne's side, it's a bigger threat. I would still take Etienne as a buy low over Swift just because I think the ceiling's higher. But I actually think he has the bigger risk. So depending on your team, if you're a winning team, I would go after Etienne. If I need to make sure I keep getting some wins, especially with the schedule, crazy enough, I would actually hold on to Swift right now just because there's a bigger threat. So waiver wire running backs is I actually have Bigsby at 4. So the 3 in front of him, number 1 is Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle there since the preseason. This is one of those ones, every single year there's a handful of players that come week 6, and this is why I started the smirking emoji, is because it's the best one. It kind of almost feels like cantankerous would be the good way to put it. I'm not trying to be whatever, haha, I told you. It was just, I'm trying to find an emoji that works for I don't know what else I can say. I don't know what to tell you to pick them up, because if you haven't, what else am I going to say that's going to convince you otherwise? Except for this, meaning maybe Rico Dowdle's number 1 because he looked good against the Steelers. It was the Steelers. It wasn't he looked good against the Panthers. He looked good against the Steelers. Do I think that means he's getting 80% of the work going forward? No. But number 1 in front of Trey Sermon's at 2 only because if Jonathan Taylor's out, although Goodson got a little bit of the sprinkle like Roschon Johnson. Cam Akers is 3 only if Mixon and Pierce are both out. And Sermon and Akers are both, you know what you're getting. You're getting RB3 production unless they fall into the end zone. But that's the only reason they're there is because that's what you might need. Conversely, to the upside of Bigsby at 4, Bucky at 5, smirk emoji. Braylon Allen at 6, smirk emoji. And then Alexander Madison at 7, who lost some work to Amir Abdullah. What a shock. Alexander Madison was Alexander Madison. Like, we got to the third quarter, and Antonio Pierce was finally like, oh, you know what? This 2.8 yards per carry ain't doing much for me. Let's get Abdullah in there. So, do you think that's a fair top 7?
I do, yeah. I just want to hammer Rico a little bit more because we talked about buying low and it being an opportunity with the tough matchups coming up and kind of like Quentin Johnson in a way where, like, be patient. But very impressive, 20 for 87. I mean, career highs there for him in terms of attempts and I believe rushing yards as well. And over the past 2 weeks, I mean, I think that was 4.4, 4.2, and he's been over 4, I think, in every game but one. It's just he hasn't gotten the run. So this is exactly what Dallas needs. Like, Mike McCarthy needs to commit to the run a little bit more, even if they can't have success. It can't just be Dak dropping back. You got to keep defenses honest. So true test for him this week against Detroit, then the bye, and then the Niners. Carolina, Tampa, week 15, week 16, the Giants again, week 13, the Bengals, week 14. There's some really nice matchups there for him. It's clear that Zeke is finished, and it's also clear that they don't care about Dalvin Cook. He's just kind of an insurance policy in case something happens. Maybe Zeke goes down and Dalvin Cook plays his role, but I think that this is Rico's backfield. He has a catch in every game. He has a receiving touchdown in back-to-back games. I think I'm not going crazy over him, but I think he's an RB too. I think, maybe a low end, and if he scores touchdowns like he did last week, he's going to put up top 15 performances. I'm in, man. I think you can get him still pretty cheap. I'm trying to get him from a guy in one of my leagues who has like all these backs, and Rico's his 5th back, and he wants Brian Thomas Jr. or Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, I just can't deal with people like that. He's rolling out Jordan Whittington and his wide receiver 2, and he's got like Alan Lazard. I'm like, man, you're not going to make any noise with these wide receivers. Like, I can help you out a little bit, but let's be real. I'm not giving you Brian Thomas Jr.
No, and I was just looking right now, and I need to figure out a way to like maybe move my microphone or move the football to get Brian Thomas's Jr. Brian Thomas's Juniors. This is football more on the view there. Well, because it's partly in front of Puka Nakua's, which, by the way, hopefully my curse doesn't extend to Brian Thomas there. But Austin Eckler's helmet is down here, so I know. Like, I'm trying to with me. You're co-captain. You're over there next to me with the Brian Thomas. Did you not watch the part where I argued with Pat about? You said you watched the show. Argued that Brian Thomas deserved to be on the top tier with Marvin Harrison and Dunze. Like, he didn't even let me finish. I was like, he deserves to be on the top tier, and he was like, no, and like went off about Malik Neighbors. I was like, you didn't let me finish. The point being is, like, pre-draft, Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, tier 1, tier 1.5 was Brian Thomas. And I was like, he probably deserves to be in that tier, but we'll say and I said, my point that I wanted to finish was, to this day, 5 weeks in, Malik Neighbors would be on a tier of his own. And then it would actually be Harrison, Odunze, and Thomas together, because he's done enough, and Harrison and Odunze's in a bad situation, but he's shown enough to me that I still believe the same thing about Odunze. It's just that Harrison's pulled back just a spit, and Thomas has done enough that I would kind of put them in a tier 1.5 with Neighbors on his own tier, but we're not talking about that today. No. But I want to talk about his teammate. That's what I was setting up there. And number 8 is Tyrone Tracy. And I would love to put him higher, but also in previous weeks he was much lower, because I don't know that they're going to commit even after that game to using him much, because Brian Dable, as we talked to Dan Duggan on Sirius XM, he just loves Devin Singletary. He said that to us. He's like, Dable loves Singletary. That's why they brought him over. He loves him. So Tracy has the best game, arguably, since Saquon Barkley has been on this team. Do you think Tracy, like, I think that I'm kind of going to answer the question for you here, kind of when the way I phrase this, Meaney. If you don't need running back, Tracy's kind of up there with Bucky Irving and Braylon Allen. If you do need running back, you could argue that Justice Hill, Algier, and Spears, and even Gibson are better pickups. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're right. Like, I still think Tracy's like more of a stash, but I do believe that he showed enough last week.
30%. Give him work.
Yes, absolutely. We're just seeing this across the league everywhere, really. with these other running backs coming in and getting some touches. There are only a handful of bell cow, like 3 or 4, where getting a lot of the work. Singletary in some of these games are underwhelming, like 10 for 37, 14 for 24 against Dallas, a team that's just been giving it up all year long. I think that Tracy showed enough last week to get 30%. So I'd have him a touch higher, but I do think what you said is on point. Like if you are desperate for touches, you need to put somebody in the flex. I think there's, some better options there on guys that are certainly that we know are going to touch the ball. But I think this is more of a home run play. Like I know that Dable likes himself some Singletary, but maybe he'll turn this thing into a 60-40 and Tracy deserves a few touches. Man, he looked good. He really did. He was impressive. And to your point last week before the injury, what'd you say? He's starting to cut in. He's starting to get more touches. So he deserves them.
I agree with you. Yeah, I'm looking right now, and we can't even get 10 running backs that are averaging 18-plus touches a game. So, and that's 18. I feel like that's bell cowish because I know that you're getting at least 15 with the potential for 20-plus. That's how I consider it in fantasy.
Yeah.
So the ones we're not interested in, Abdullah and McNichols. McNichols got garbage time with Eckler back, and Abdullah already brought up, like, hell, is Zamir White's active? a committee on one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Can't even run the football. They can't move the football. It's a disaster. Can Devontae Adams it's a good day to trade Devontae Adams.
It's a good day. It's a good day. It's laundry day. It's a good day. It's always a good. Let's move to wide receivers. Josh Downs is number 1. Is that a shock to you?
No, it's not.
Well,
it's not.
well, maybe.
You're a big Josh
let's
Downs
find out.
guy. Yeah, who else is on your list?
Okay, there you go. So let's see. I'll give you the top 7. You give me top 7 and see where you disagree, where you want, and if you do want to put anybody at number 1. Number 2 is Ladd McConkey, who fell back under 60%, which I like. I understand people need people during buys. Like, I'm not coming for you. If you're like, not in my league, I had injuries, I couldn't drop Tyreek Hill because even though I can't use him, blah, blah. Like, I get all that. I'm just talking about in general. For a 1-week flyer, like, you got to have a starting lineup, but I can't imagine, like, Ladd McConkey was that unstashable. Like that he fell under 60%. Like, this is just weird to me. But anyway, Downs 1. He is the one, whether it's Richardson or Flacco. McConkey, he's Justin Herbert's 1. Darnell Mooney at 3. Quentin Johnston at 4. Dropped even more than McConkey, also coming off a bad game. JuJu Smith-Schuster, who you kept texting me about last night, damn it, at 5. Jalen Tolbert at 6. And Tyler Lockett at 7. Do you want to mix those up anyway? Do you want to put somebody else at number 1?
I don't think so. I think this is a pretty good order. Shout out Tolbert, who I did bring up a couple weeks ago with you, and we were just like, maybe not, maybe not.
Because we just were stashing the third wide receiver, but we were stashing.
We were stashing, and I think it's starting to become a thing. I think defenses are focusing in on CD, which is what should be the game plan.
Yeah, but what happened is, like, I'm not saying like for everybody out there, if you haven't listened to all the podcasts or seen Tolbert in the waiver column, what happened needed to happen is Brandon Cooks got hurt. For sure. It needed to happen, and it's happening.
But I mean, I'm not moving him up. I think he's interesting.
Would you take him over Lockett? This is why. Yeah, see,
I think I would. I think
because
I would, but they're very close, very close.
Smith and Jigba and Lockett are good. We're seeing this. This is just not going to stop. You're not. No. And so, where did I word this? I said it either. Did I say it to you on Sirius XM or did I put this in the article? I don't even remember. This is how many times I said that. It's like you have to treat them as basically a streaming tight end, like a Kyle Pitts. Is like you just have to live with it. You can't not start Lockett every single week, and you can't not start Smith and Jigba every single week, because if you try to play matchups, you're going to miss it, because it's not indicative of, JSN has a good slot matchup corner, like whatever. Tolbert has a good, or not, sorry, Tyler Lockett has a good whatever, blah, blah, because corners rotate so much. There's very few that actually stick on wide receivers these days. Oh, it's Tamayo. Surtain is one. You could talk about some of the others. But if you try to play the matchups, you're just going to be 50. Probably best case scenario, you're 50-50 at calling the matchups, which means you're actually less likely than even 50-50 to get them right.
Yeah, no, I co-signed that for sure. And yeah, it's unfortunately this is kind of what we said. We said that the breakout could be possible for JSN, but Lockett is still very much involved in this offense, and Gino is throwing him the football. I'm comfortable with your order. You know, Ladd is coming off his best game. You know, he had 5 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown, 7 targets. He is widely available, but I agree with you on downs over him. I was thinking Mooney over Ladd. I think the ceiling could potentially be higher for Mooney, but what you said is true. With Ladd is the number 1 target, and that's why I would put him ahead of Mooney. Where you still have London. You know, Pitts had a nice game, but Moody's very, very
500 yards.
Yeah, he's not going to do that. He's not going to throw the ball 60 times. But Mooney's a 3. Ladd is a 3. Man, JuJu.
Mooney is Shaheed, and Shaheed is Moody.
JuJu, right after I'm texting about JuJu, it makes me sick. I may actually be interested in this guy. He drops the touchdown pass and the pick, right?
Catch with your hands, not with your chest, buddy.
But it's very clear watching that football game. Like he is, when there were some questions on, we said this again on the Sirius show, what are we looking for here today? We know Kelsey's going to be very much involved, and he's back. Oh, baby, is he ever back? Catch prop 5.5. He doubled that one up. After that, who are we looking at? There's going to be creative ways to try to get Worthy involved. They did that yesterday, right? Kelsey took the snap, handed it off to Worthy in the red zone, and he has a rushing touchdown, took a couple shots down the field. But I saw Patrick Mahomes taking some of those short intermediate type, routes that JuJu was running and targeting him in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just the matchup that they were exploiting there against the Saints, but it's, you could either pick him up. Maybe you picked him up. You could sell high, but I think he could be a flex play moving forward here for you for the next couple of weeks because it's the Chiefs.
I said potential wide receiver 3 value. My concern that I put in there is just temper your expectations coming off of, it was a wide receiver 1 performance. So temper your expectations for this reason. So he ran 27 routes to 32 for the team. 31 was run by Xavier Worthy. And the reason I dug into that, because I noticed and I was like watching, as you were very closely here, and I don't know if you noticed the same thing, which is what sent me down to check my numbers, is Xavier Worthy was out there with 1 wide receiver formations. And I was like, Like, I wasn't expecting necessarily JuJu Smith-Schuster because you're out wide and that's not really where he is anyway. But, he has some decent blocking. And it's like, they really trust Xavier Worthy in the 1 wide receiver set? But he ran 31. Watson ran more than, I think it was 29 or 30 than Smith-Schuster. Smith-Schuster's down at 20. I know. Legit cardio. 0. Yeah. He had a big fat 0. So it's 27. And it's not a huge number to say that he had 27 to 32, but it's enough to say like, maybe Worthy isn't going to be the next best value. Smith-Schuster is, but I say wide receiver 3 because Worthy is going to be enough of an annoyance to keep him from being more than wide receiver 3. Kind of like what Gabe Davis is doing to Christian Kirk, which is actually even worse. He's hurting Kirk even more, but in that same fashion is that like, it's just going to just cap him a little bit. So I'm with you. You have to, he looked burstier than he did a lot of times this last time with the Chiefs. Yeah. So, like, similar to Kareem Hunt, I don't know, the Chiefs, it's that you feel good about being on the team you're on, and it's just kind of like you're more excited. But that's not right because Smith-Schuster didn't look that bursty the last time he was with the Chiefs, so I don't know.
He didn't. He looked way better last night than at any point I think I'd ever seen him in Kansas City.
Last 3 years?
Yeah, for sure. Like, that's what I was texting you. I was like, man, like, watching this game, I'm kind of like feeling JuJu Smith-Schuster here. And I know people watching on primetime and everything gets blown up in primetime games. I mean, 130 yards on 7 catches, 8 targets. My goodness. The bye this week in San Fran. So I don't know if the Chiefs feel like, hey, maybe we don't need to make a trade for a guy like Amari Cooper. Maybe we can actually roll with what we have here in JuJu and some of the other misfits, and Worthy's going to continue to grow as a wide receiver. And we got our guy Travis Kelce, and Kareem Hunt looks like the rookie running back we drafted, way back when.
The Chiefs should hit up the Rams and send them a 3rd rounder for Kupp right now.
For Cooper Kupp?
Well,
It would
because the
probably
only reason I
break
say
Sean McVay's heart to do it, but probably a good call.
the only reason I say that is to people like third rounder. It was so because Devontae Adams rumors are that they're asking for a second and that no team has been willing to pay that
Right.
so far.
This is what happens
So,
in the NFL.
which
It's
makes
not your
me think,
Dynasty Madden League.
yeah, which I think would make a third. And
Yeah.
if you're telling me the 1 year of Cup versus 2 of Adams, maybe 3 of Adams for a third, maybe still like a Super Bowl contender, and it's going to be late in the third, obviously, because you're the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Throw a third
Yeah.
at Cup.
Why not?
I don't know.
I mean, your window is open. Just try to win as many championships as you can. Who cares about
Right?
the draft picks?
The
Do what
first
you
one to
can
go
to-
three-peat. You put Cup on the Chiefs for a third. You tell me a third. Hell, if you put Cup
Forget about
on the
it.
Chiefs and you said, I'm the Chiefs. I'm the Chiefs GM right now, Chris Meaney, and you called me up. You're like, hey, this is not Sean McVay. This is Les Snead. This is Snead. And I guarantee you can't do this, obviously, but you said, hey, I guarantee you Cup is healthy for the rest of the season all the way through your Super Bowl run. I'd be like, here's a second. Done.
Yeah.
Do it. Like, I don't care that's a second because I'm getting my third NFL championship in a row.
Yeah, there's
like,
no
take it.
hesitation. You know, the defense is on point, and I can't imagine what Mahomes' numbers would look like and what this team would just be unstoppable given, somebody like that added to the wide receiver room. It's wild.
Stupid. So,
Yeah.
all right, after Lockett, I have Dobbs at 8. This just feels wrong. It's either too low because he's going to be back to being the number 2 when he's back, but it also could be too high because who the hell knows if this is a one-game issue. Feels like there has to be more to it. I said that in the article. Wan'Dale Robinson at 9. Just volume is king for him. Bad matchups. The volume probably won't be there. Leggett, if we knew he was healthy. Trey Tucker, Hopkins, Myers, Lazard, Judy, Coleman down there. 1 catch. Whittington and Atwell, I wanted to talk about real quick before a few flyers at the end. But Whittington and Atwell, I said just kind of please try, similar to McConkey, but less so than McConkey, but please try to keep them on your bench. I know it's a bye, and Cooper Kupp is supposed to be back, but twofold, Beanie. Cooper Kupp is supposed to be back.
Yep.
What if he's not 100%? What if he's not ready after the bye? What if he is traded and he's not even on this team, and then you dropped him? So that's 1. And then 2, even if he is back, Beanie, somebody is still Puka Nacua until Nacua comes back. So Whittington to Atwell, which way would you go? Because there's 2 ways to look at this. You can listen to the team, and you can listen to Stafford, and you can listen to everybody saying, man, Whittington is somebody we really love. We got to find ways to get the ball in his hand. You've seen what we can do. We're going to continue to expand his role. All these things have been said so far throughout the season. On the flip side, you can say Tutu Atwell, the veteran, has stepped in as soon as this happened, and whether it's been Whittington, DeMarcus Robinson, or anybody else, Atwell's been pretty consistent. He's the veteran. Does he get the gig? Does he keep the Nacua role, or does Whittington get the Nacua role when Cooper Kupp is back? My point being, keep both if you can, but if you could only keep one, would you keep the upside of Whittington, or would you keep the what we know in Tutu Atwell?
I think I would go Whittington. Yeah, I think I would lean with him. I like the 18 targets in the last couple weeks. I am uncertain what his role would be. Like, Tutu was an afterthought until all these injuries happened. Like, nobody was really even thinking about Tutu, DeMarcus Robinson and Addis and Whittington and Johnson. But
He was behind Whittington to start. He was 5th.
yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what I think will happen. I mean, Tutu's a nice little player. They're taking some deep shots with him down the field, Matthew Stafford. But I think Whittington, I think they have something in Jordan Whittington. And I can see him, when everybody's fully healthy. Obviously, he's not going to be much for you, but I can see from a real life standpoint him being maybe the third option for Matthew Stafford consistently down the stretch of the season. So I would hang on to him like you said, if you could. You got the bye week coming up, and who knows? Kupp may get traded, or Kupp may suffer another setback. He's certainly had some issues, unfortunately, staying healthy over the past couple of years, playing through some injuries last year as well. And it doesn't sound like Puka's going to be back anytime soon. Like, I was thinking maybe week 9, week 10 for Puka Nacua. So you could get a couple more weeks out of Whittington.
Okay. As we get out of here, Michael Wilson's at 18. I even referenced Mayo and said he's in worst place, because when you think he's going to show up in an opportunity, he does nothing. And then last week, when everybody's healthy, McBride's back, and he's like,
I went up
goes off.
against him last week in my home league, and I had Marv. It just pissed me off.
Our good friend Jay Felicio in my home league, in our super flex home league, had no second quarterback because of injury and a bye. He still won. Effing Lamar Jackson. I had to face Lamar Jackson, and I had the injury to Achane. I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, of all weeks, like seriously. But anyway, Jalen Polk is at 19 in case May takes over.
Good stash.
Yeah, good stash. Noah or Diami Brown is what I put. Whichever one of the two is healthy. It's Noah if it's healthy, and then Diami Brown, as you saw, they fill the same role. Deep flyer. We're talking wide receiver 5 there. That's more of a starter than a pure stash like Polk. Ray McLeod's down here. And then the last two are Jalen Coker. If Leggett is out, I wouldn't consider more than a wide receiver 5, and Xavier Hutchinson as a wide receiver 5 with Nico Collins sideline. Those all sound good to you? I think Polk's your favorite of those, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. I liked him. It's just it may not ever happen for him this year, but at some point we're going to see Drake May, and just looking at that wide receiver room,
like stop.
Yeah, it probably should be, and I think we'll hear something pretty soon actually about it being him.
Everybody keeps making excuses like, well, Brissett has nobody to throw to and blah blah. There's a lot of teams that have nobody to throw to that do just fine. I brought this up to Mayo. Daniel Jones was throwing to Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. Granted, he faced the Seahawks defense, but love to hate on Daniel Jones, but he did just fine with no Malik Neighbors, and you're telling me that Drake May can't do better than Brissett, that Brissett's only struggling because they don't have wide receivers? Get the hell out of here.
And I agree. And, there's something to be said about the offensive line in the first few weeks and all of that, but now we're into week 6. And I don't think that Jacoby Brissett is taking too many shots, like in hits. Like, I don't see him just getting smoked all the time where it's like, oh, I'll just throw my rookie quarterback and let him take all those
Demario
hits.
Douglas was a wide receiver 4 last year.
Right. And Polk is going to be a nice player in the league, man. I think he's going to be a red zone target. He already has a touchdown. He almost just missed the touchdown last week. I didn't understand. I didn't know that you had to have your heels in too. Like I thought the tippy toe, like
no,
I don't know. Anyways, this is a strange rule because you could tippy toe on the side, you could tippy toe there, but like he didn't.
No, I knew this from
he had to have the heels
because this happened 2 years ago. I think it was the same thing, and that was the whole point. Like everybody was talking about on Twitter, is that it's so bat crap crazy because if you're between the end zones, just in the middle of the field, you can have your toe down, step out of bounds, no problem. But if you have your toe down in the end zone, your heel has to come down too. Which is just why. It's the same thing as like the football crossing the plane. Is you can be in the end zone, but catching the ball in front of you out of the end zone, it's not a touchdown. But if you're going the other direction and you jump for the end zone, as soon as the ball hits and the rest of your body's outside of it, it's kind of like
it's just so strange because
wait. How about this, Meaney? You can catch the ball on your tippy toes, falling out of bounds. The ball wasn't even in bounds. Like the ball is out of bounds, but you catch it with your tippy toes in the end zone and fall down. Touchdown. The other direction, you have your toes in and you're catching the ball and the ball is in the end zone and then your heel steps out. Not a touchdown.
This is what I'm talking about. It actually blew my mind watching with Pat. I wasn't sure. I'm like, I don't think that that's a touchdown. But I'm not 100% sure. And I was talking that out with them. And we were like, no. Like, Pat's like, no. Like, I didn't know this. Like, that's got to be a touchdown. Because of some of the things you just said. You could do it, on the sides and catch out of bounds and just have your toes in there. Anyways.
People still don't understand the whole
rule.
The lateral rule is that, so the person who catches the ball gets all the yards to where they caught it and then pitched it. And the pitching starts where the player is. But they got to get past the yard to gain from whoever not the yard to gain, the yards that the person got first. So if anything they do is lost, they get negative yards, and the QB gets the net yards. It's like super math here, by the way. Before we get out of here, because by the way, make sure at Chris Meaney over at FTN, make sure you check out Dangle Bet Ciely and all the great hockey stuff that he's got going on. It's coming soon. Actually, it's technically already started with the overseas stuff. If you didn't know that, I knew that. There you go. Dontayvion Wicks, he's in Dumpsville with a haha, I gotcha. He doesn't deserve to be in Dumpsville. I wanted to make sure everybody knew and didn't scan. I know. I don't want to make sure they scanned past them, didn't see him in worries. I wanted to make sure they saw the name and went, whoa, hold on a second. Do not drop Dontayvion Wicks. However, Meaney, as we get out of here, here's what I will say. Would you drop Dontayvion Wicks for Josh Downs? Yes or no? Yes?
Yes.
McConkey, yes.
It would break my heart to do so. Yes, Mooney, and that's it.
And Mooney, not Quentin Johnston.
No.
Not JuJu Smith-Schuster.
No.
There you go.
Not doing it. I liked what I saw, but I'm not doing it. I'm staying. I'll hang around with Wicks for a little bit longer.
Well, and hopefully you've been hanging around for the rest of this podcast and heard all this. Please tell your friends and your family and your coworkers and anybody, people on the street. After you're done, like, they'll be like, hey, come to church and listen to the podcast or something like that. For all those people that love talking to random strangers. Hey, you ever watch football? Like, you have a Giants jersey on. You're insane like I am. Listen to this podcast. We're out of here.